Hello Year 11s and welcome to remote learning once again. I thought I would just take you through a PowerPoint on writing an analytical text response. I know that you've done this before with Macbeth, but I thought that I would just go over it again with you, and this time I'm going to use Little Miss Sunshine as our example. If we can learn how to write an analytical text response for Little Miss Sunshine and The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night Time separately, then technically we should be able to just sit them together for a comparative text response, which is our aim for the end of this outcome. So let's get into it. An analytical text response should include a variety of things, and here's just some ones to prompt your memory. They should have well-structured teal paragraphs. Now, I use TEAL, but I know some of your teachers will only use TEEL, and that's perfectly fine. Regardless of the acronym you're using, the whole aim is that you are embedding text and analysing the importance of that text back to the question that you're answering. So our paragraph should include relevant quotes from the text. It should include discussion around the motif symbols, the mise en scène, and the cinematic devices that are being used in the film as well. And it should explore how the characters are revealing the ideas and the messages behind the themes that Dayton and Farris have embedded into the film itself. These exploration of themes should also relate back to the question. Remember that you need to use formal and analytical language. It shouldn't sound like a conversation. It should sound like you are, in fact, the expert. So no slang, and avoid using first person. So don't write things like, in this essay, I will, or I think this is, or I agree, or in my opinion. We need to avoid slang and signposting like my next argument is. Try and make it as formal as you possibly can, and have a think about the sophisticated vocab that you're using in your text response. All right, let's have a look at our introduction. So our introduction needs to clearly outline the contention of your piece, and this should be directly related to the question that you have chosen. So here's an example I've worked out for you. So the question is, and this is one of the questions we gave you as one of the 4, in what ways does Little Miss Sunshine explore that the journey is more important than the destination? So from that, I've decided that the journey is more important than the destination, and so therefore my contention has now become Little Miss Sunshine reveals through the growth of the members of the Hoover family that the journey is more important than the destination. A contention like this opens up the possibilities of me being able to focus now on the members of the Hoover family and the lessons that they've learnt throughout the film. And I'm going to tie that back to themes, and we'll have a look at how I do that in a moment. Then in your introduction, you need to outline your 3 arguments briefly. These will be the statements that you base your body paragraphs on. You don't have to do these as an individual sentence. You can do them as one sentence that outlines all 3 of them, or maybe a couple of sentences that outlines them briefly. Remember that you need to include the title and the directors of the text, and also some context background to the text. Now, it's really important that you try to relate your background knowledge that you're showing in your introduction to the question that you're actually asking. So what I mean by that is, if we're going to talk about what happens in the film as our context or our background, we need to try and match it to the themes that are being suggested in the questions. So this question here I've got on the slide is, Little Miss Sunshine shows that family is a source of tension. Discuss. Now I'm going to focus my background knowledge on the family, not particularly on the journey, although you can actually meld the 2 together. But my background context statement could be something like, Little Miss Sunshine is a road trip film that explores the coming together of a dysfunctional family as they embark on the journey to take their youngest member, Olive, across the country to participate in a beauty pageant in California. So it's a nice, easy sentence, but it does touch on the dysfunctional nature of the Hoover family. So make sure you try and match that. All right, let's get into the body paragraphs. So here is how I break down my acronym TEAL, T-E-E-A-L. So T is for topic sentence, And this should be the argument that you're going to explore within the body of your paragraph. Now, this sentence needs to also relate directly back to the contention of your piece, so that we know that at the end of reading your essay, you've completely resolved the question that you've been given. The topic sentence, therefore, should focus around a theme or a message or an idea. To try desperately not to mention any of the names of the characters. Why is that, Miss Warren? Well, if you write about the characters immediately in your topic sentence, then you've kind of written yourself into a corner. If you can only write about the topic that you've put on the page, then if you've mentioned a character, you can't include another character really in your paragraph and have it make good structural sense. So we should try and frame our paragraphs around themes. The next letter is E, it's explanation, and this is where you expand a little bit more on your point. This will happen throughout your paragraph as well, as you kind of make bridging sentences between your evidence and your analysis. This is where you can introduce your characters and the points you're trying to make a little bit more detailed. The second E is evidence, and this is where you use embedded quotes, explanations about scenes, discussion around cinematic devices and motifs, or the tracking of character development throughout the film as your evidence. Any of these things are fine, but do try to embed as much of the actual quotes as you possibly can. And then comes the A, and this is really important, that if you have embedded any kind of evidence, you need to stop and analyse why it is important and why you felt the need to include it into your essay. This will be where you can reflect on why it is important, what are the directors trying to convey through that evidence, and how does it relate back to the argument that you're trying to make. Remember, at the end of the day, your paragraph is trying to convince us of a particular point. And then finally, we have the L, which is the link, which makes a statement that links back to the contention, but also includes some kind of indication of marrying the argument and the contention together. All right, let's have a look at a model body paragraph. So the question that I've asked, that I've decided to write mine on, is in what ways does Little Miss Sunshine explore that the journey is more important than the destination? And so we can see there the yellow is my topic sentence. Journeys enable one to open up to see the importance of relationships. So I've talked about the fact that journeys are being focused on here, and I'm saying why journeys are important. I haven't mentioned a character's name because that will come next. All right, so after our topic sentence, we need our explanation. So I've highlighted in green my explanation sentences, and you can see there that in my second one, while Dwayne appears to be self-determined from the outset of the film, it is only after experiencing a great challenge that he truly comes to understand the importance of believing in yourself. So I've explained a little bit further about where I'm going to go with it, and you can see that the explanation is also peppered throughout the rest of the paragraph as well. I've also had to pepper throughout my paragraph my evidence, so this is highlighted in the aqua. I'm going to show you this paragraph all coloured in a moment, and we'll have a read through it together. But you can see that every time I've mentioned the aqua or the evidence, I've then gone and explained why that evidence is important in the pink. So we'll have a read through this in a moment, but the last element is obviously our linking statement there in the grey. Now those colours relate back to the structure I was talking about. Let's have a look at the paragraph together then. So journeys enable one to open up to see the importance of relationships. While Dwayne appears to be self-determined from the outset of the film, it is only after experiencing a great challenge that he truly comes to understand the importance of believing in yourself. From the very beginning, Dayton and Faris portray Dwayne as focused and driven as the opening montage cuts from him completing bench presses to doing chin-ups to crunches and then finally crossing off a long list of days that he has been committed to his personal fitness development. It isn't until Cheryl reveals to Frank that Dwayne has been a selective mute for 9 months, and Dwayne himself writes, "I hate everyone," that the audience see that his determination is actually cutting himself off from the others and hindering his chance at meaningful relationships. Now, I needed to write that first part of the paragraph because I needed to connect the audience to the fact that Dwayne was cut off and he needed to experience something on the journey for him to be able to learn a lesson. So let's keep reading. Only when he discovers that he is colorblind and Frank reveals he can't fly jets if you're colorblind, does his eventual breakdown open him up to taking on the advice of others, repairing his relationship with his family, and building a relationship with Frank. The use of the camera in Dwayne's breakdown allowed the directors to accentuate the divide between Dwayne and his family at that point, with him in the very front of the frame and his family separated in the distance. By having the yellow van also in this shot, the audience is also reminded of the hope of happiness that still existed for Dwayne. Eventually, Dwayne is able to fully open up to receive Frank's advice on the pier when he comes to the realization that life is like one effing beauty contest after another, meaning that even though judgment will come, you should do what you love and F the rest. The world of possibilities that lay before him was also represented in the director's choice to cut away from this conversation to the vast expanse of the ocean. The family's journey across the country was the instrument that allowed Dwayne to come to this realization and thus begin to cherish the connection he had with his family. So you can see that the EEA needs to be repeated throughout the entire paragraph. And you can see that I've used both talking about mise-en-scène, motifs, and also direct quoting when I'm analysing the text. The last thing you need to do in a essay is the conclusion, and this clearly outlines the contention of your piece once more. It also outlines your 3 arguments, and I challenge you to try and do this within 1 sentence. And then finally, you're going to finish with an interesting statement about the intention of the directors. What was an overall message in regards to the question that you have addressed? And that will be related to one of the themes. So, for example, I've got the relationships in Little Miss Sunshine are dysfunctional yet important. That's another one of our questions we've been looking at. So my concluding statement in an essay about that might look something like this. Throughout the film, and through the use of dysfunctional relationships and actions that question stereotypical norms, Dayton and Farris warn the audience, against judging a person simply on how they appear. They encourage the viewer to accept and support someone for who they are. And so I've left with a statement that shows that I truly did understand why the film would have actually been made. I hope that helped you with your analytical text response. Lots of these skills will transfer over to the comparative text response as well. So good luck trying to write one of your essay questions, and please, if you have any questions, can email your teacher and ask them, and they'll certainly walk you through it. Thank you, Year 11.